With all the theft, kidnappings, death and loss of lives across the country, the Chief of Army Staff took up Buratai alleges sabotage. And today we will be talking about Lagos. Yes, how well was the outgoing governor? How has he performed? Has he performed well or not? Of course, we will be having a debate. And of course, what does Babajide Sanwo-Olu need to look at? This and more. And this is Plus Politics, and I am Mariana Cohn. We start the show rather, with the recent allegations from the Chief of Army Staff, who says the months of unrest, banditry, killings and kidnappings have been majorly because of politicians who lost at the general elections. This is really interesting. Well, I have in the studio Francis Chilaka. He's a political analyst. It's good to have you join us. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Lester Wilcox, I beg your pardon. Thank you for joining us. And we also have in the studio Adeni Kunu, a political analyst. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
All right. So for me, this is really interesting because up until the elections, we had banditry, we had court clashes, all of this. Even in the thick of campaigns, we had this, even before the elections came around. So I'm trying to piece together what would have made Major Buratai to come up with this, I don't know, perception that those who lost the elections were the reasons for, all of this unrest.
Well, I must say that you can give that about 10–20% in respect of people who over time have made enough money to have the allegiance of some people who don't understand patriotism to themselves. But that is not to run away from what really the problems are and the source of the problem. The issue with insurgency and banditry is an accumulation of government negligence and leadership irresponsibility, and on top of that is corruption. If you did a strong comparison of the people who have been able to access some kind of education over the years across the South-North divide, I must say that the challenge is that many people who are now exercising their instinct of survival are not able to have opportunities to channel their energies into what can be termed or deemed profitable enough. So education enables you, if you don't have all the money in the world, it enables you to develop capacity for proper survival, to appreciate the next person, and in fact see life as something worth living. But on the other hand, the survival instinct that we find in people who are educated or who have been able to develop themselves in some areas of skill happens to also be that they deploy the same survival instinct positively. So basically, for most of what we see as kidnapping, banditry, and insurgency in the North is an accumulation of government negligence and the system run in the North. So
it has nothing whatsoever to do with this statement, which some people term ridiculous, by the
if at all,
Army Chief.
It can't be more than 5–10%, but that's not the main reason why we have this unrest.
Mr. Wilcox, do you think that there is any iota, maybe any, of truth in what Buratai's statement? I mean, I'm just wondering, if this has been happening, and I still go back to what I said initially, before, during, and after the elections, does he have any, I mean, I'm wondering, did he think it through before he even started uttering those words?
Well, Lieutenant General Buratai is a very seasoned soldier. He's the Chief of Army Staff, a position he's held now for over 3 years. And so he has a lot of intelligence at his disposal. He has a lot of facts at his disposal. So if he comes out to make such statements, I cannot, anybody who wants to wish away is being ridiculous or economical with the truth.
But if I am creating unrest, for example, just hold on. If I'm creating unrest, for example, and maybe for some reason I'm running for office, how am I to know that I'm going to lose the election, which would one way or the other validate his statement?
Yes, I'm coming. I want to align briefly with my colleague here. He gives it about 10-15%. I'll give it about 20 to 40%. Because look, we must situate this whole unrest in their various compartments.
Okay.
We cannot put all of them in one basket. If we put all of them in one basket, then somebody will be mischievous, say Buratai is making a useless statement. Okay. We must separate them as the type of violence we're having, and then we'll address the root cause. Now, we've had banditry. Banditry cannot be said to be, as a cattle rustling and banditry, cannot be said to be influenced majorly by politicians. Yes, there could be some powerful men who profit from such illegal trade. Now, we've had before, like you said, and get it clear, shortly before the election, there was a cessation of hostility everywhere.
Well, in some
from
states,
2018,
in some states, there
you have skirmish. Of look, all over the world there's criminality. Everywhere in the world there's criminality. Anytime. We saw what happened in Sri Lanka. We saw what happened in the US, school shooting. Yes. So there's criminals everywhere. But this light scale that got so much attention, let's take Benue for example. Between 2018 and later part of towards the end of 2018, there was a lot of upheaval, everyday killing, everyday cattle, everyday Fulani herdsmen, everyday burial, mass burial, everyday state burial. It went from Benue to Taraba. It was all over the place. You are reporting every day. You are reporting one herdsman and all that. But shortly after Governor Tong got a ticket, PDP ticket, and election was on. Did you hear of that again? Until after the election. You are not hearing, after the election, you're not hearing that it is, you not start hearing Jukum TV conflict. Before then, did you hear Jukum TV conflict? What you are hearing is herdsmen. So let's situate those issues. Now, there was a renewed upsurge of banditry, especially in Zamfara State. So if we know what the root cause of Zamfara problem is, it is quest for gold. The people are looking for territories, and the army has this information, and that's why Buratai can come up and say it. It has been established to a large extent of the gold deposit that people are scrambling for. And of course, when you have so much money, you can create so much instability. So Buratai's statement, I will take it like 20 to 40% of the problem, while there is the underlying natural criminality that has gone on. But for me, really, I will also add this. I do not know why we are painting, we're just painting a northern problem. We had it we have it in the south. We have criminality in the south. We have kidnapping in the south every day. We have kidnapping in River State, almost in daily business. Between the, what they call it, Ikwere, Aziz. Yes, Emoha Aziz. What is happening?
We know this.
Every day.
But this is my question, and it's coming to you, Adeni. So if I understand you very well, Alester, are we saying that we're letting, if this is anything to go by, we're letting a handful of people, politicians, aid us or arm us to kill ourselves? Because this is what you mean.
I'd like to really say
we're taking
this,
our own life for some person.
Because if you look at it, it's a very ridiculous expression to make without action following such expression. Yeah. In 2012 in South Korea, the president went away to South Korea and he said that the people who are bringing his government down, who are disturbing the country, insurgents and his government and all that, he made some statements and no action as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He said, in advanced countries, what we've seen is if you have intelligence strong enough and they find out that certain things have been done, maybe against the country, something treasonable, immediately they confirm what they found out. They arrest you immediately. I am concerned about the leadership of the country that tells us that some people are responsible for what is disturbing a sovereign entity that is governed by law, and those persons are not arrested, and the problem continues. Let me look at what happened some weeks ago regarding the cartel that they said plants drugs in people's bags. They arrested 6 persons. As I speak, they've only mentioned one, and the company that person works for. What are they keeping the remaining 5 from? Obviously, maybe they are working with the companies, organizations of some heavyweights in this country. I think that we have to really talk or speak to issues as they are. He talked about gold in Zamfara. the escalation in violence has took another turn in the past 3-4 years. I'm not talking about because of APC. I'm just looking at the time when these things indeed escalated. I'm saying Zamfara now. I know that when this administration came to the saddle, it worked a great deal in Borno. A lot of local governments were under the control of these people. But it appears as if that violence that it reduced immensely at the beginning of his administration has moved to areas like Kajuru and Zamfara. And I have to say that we must address these issues as they are. When you talk about politicians are, in my own estimations and assessment, as well as what I've read, just a minuscule regarding the problems that we have on ground. I tell you very well, the issues you said are prevalent in the South are not as dastardly as they are in the North. And security operatives can tell you for the fact that they have been engaged intensely in reducing or tackling these problems more up north than in the southern part of the country. So we really have to look at the historicity of these issues. If you check the history of Nigeria as a whole after independence, and you itemize certain problems that has bedeviled both the fights, you'd find out that we've had more to deal with in the north. Now, in the Niger Delta, I know that there were years of problems regarding the pipelines.
Insurgency.
And yes, but it did not transcend those areas, especially the pipeline area. But now we have wanton killings up north.
Well, we have cultism also.
I agree. Cultism is not peculiar to the south.
Well, there are lots of beheadings every day.
Yeah. So my concern is that nobody should shield himself or maybe rescind from the responsibility of perhaps what should have been done. And I think the security operatives indeed must up their game.
Let's talk about the legal system, the modus operandi of making sure that we investigate and reprimand these people, because you made mention of the fact that certain persons you think allegedly are being shielded because of, you know, maybe where they work or people who they're related to. Because I like to look for solutions when we talk about issues like this. How do we go about solving it or scratching even the surface of these kind of issues? Because we see it, and I've said it over and over on this show, that it seems like our legal system has one eye open, so we can see the rich man and the poor person. So where do we start?
I agree with you completely, and I also want to align with what Kuno just said. One thing I hate in this country is when they say name withheld. Sincerely. And I think the press is more guilty of not in this second. And I will always hit it hard at the press. Because
the press reports what the police gives, the information they get.
Hold on. You know that Bank XYZ had an issue or a burglary. Clear to everybody. The deaf, the blind knows that Bank XYZ was burgled. And what would the report read? A new generation bank. You know that a man was arrested with counterfeit money or anything. You said a man, name withheld. You know the name. But if it is the common thief at Munshi or at this thing, his full name will be blasted. So, number one, what country are we running for? By you, the fourth estate of the realm that is supposed to be the exposé of this issue. That is one. Two, the responses of the citizens, the ordinary you and me citizen, in seeing the so-called big man stand trial. The backlash, it will come either as on ethnic divide, it will come on political divide, it will take a religious divide. Now there will be separate, rather than addressing that this man is a thief, this man is a criminal that is involved in armed struggling and in armed banditry that has killed people. Instead of appointing it that way, the press will corner it, and the bandits and the real culprit will go scot-free. Meanwhile, the bandit, the foot soldiers will get light sentences or their case forgotten in the police stations or somewhere. That is the country we are. So until and unless we want a country where everybody is equal before the law, and the press has has the key. I don't know the press. Sorry, let me just finish. I don't know the press code you have against publishing names or using name withheld. I don't know the press code. I will never say name withheld. If I know a name, except don't mean you are sure. If I know a name that commits a crime, I will always say it.
I think that, the different rules or codes that we abide by, we, the broadcast media, we have, hold on, I'm trying to educate you a bit. We have the NBC code. The press, the writers, yes, they have their own codes.
Yes.
But again, the truth is, if you're reporting a statement that has not been validated by the police, or whether you were there or not, you need to follow a certain rules and regulation before if it's not, if it's an allegation, yes, you cannot say so and so.
What stop you from saying? Okay, if an allegation against Lester Wilcox, because I'm not in the top
because
echelon.
You can sue if at the end of the day it wasn't a real thing.
I'm not in the top echelon. My name will be flashed. But when it is Bukola Saraki or Dogara or whoever, it will be a certain person.
That we don't make it about
So what I'm saying is, even the NBC that writes whatever code is part of the, I'm not laying it on you. It's part of the problem. You understand? Now, until we begin to name and shame, look, there's nothing stopping you from saying somebody that's allegation against XYZ. He clears himself in the court or whatever. But you see, when there is issue, even when the so-called big man is brought on trial, we have seen politically, when politically exposed persons come to trial, what are the narratives? Witch hunt, black hunt, this, that. Meanwhile, we all forget the substance of the matter. And again, of course, the legal system, our own legal system, people are shameless. It allows you to hire as many sons and the beneficiaries, the major beneficiaries of corruption and the major beneficiaries of corrupt practices, which is the lawyers in this country, will also be there because there is no punitive against a lawyer taking a dirty case and making a mess of it. We saw what happened in the UK.
Well,
Ibori's lawyer went to jail with Ibori in the UK.
Even a man who is guilty glaringly has a right to defense.
Of course.
Of course.
Well,
and if he lost the case, the lawyer, if he loses the case or he makes a mess of the case, the so-called lawyer will also be answering for, just like it happened in Ibori's case in London. But in Nigeria, it's not so.
Well, as far as I am concerned, I think the first thing every one of us must do is to look at the mirror and remind ourselves who is standing before that mirror. Oftentimes we forget that if something is done rightly, that we take credit. If it is done negatively by us, we have to really bear the brunt of our actions. For Nigeria's judicial system, where I started having issues with the judicial system is when many persons started getting caught in the web of bribe connection. In fact, that's one of the most disgraceful revelations that I've seen as far as the supposed last hope of the common man is concerned.
But we still have 2 judges who are on trial.
Yes, there are 2 judges. That's one. Then I also must add here that we have to endeavor to divorce ourselves from senseless sentiments that have not helped us at all. Nigeria is a reputable country for such negatives. And you cannot afford to be reputable for such negatives because it doesn't move us forward. If we check many countries that attained independence the same time as we did, they've gone far ahead of us. You see, and all of these inefficiencies and all of these lapses affect the overall. And that is why in 2019, we've not been able to, as a country, generate up to 10,000 megawatts of properly distributed electricity. Because at one end, a man is not allowing the gas plant to work so that his friend who imports generator from Saudi Arabia can make his sales and he gets a cut. So going back to this issue of security and the arrest of people, I think civil society groups have a huge role to play. We are playing a role here.
There are people who also question
the
intentions of some of these so-called civil society. This is not in any way trying to rubbish the fact that
you're not rubbishing them because
you have facts.
There are facts that, as a matter of fact, some of these non-governmental organizations up north, for instance, were told, I think sometime last year, that they have to re-register because many of them are not living up to their billing, and perhaps they were not properly registered, and even the ones that were properly registered were not doing what they should do. So I must say here that for everybody who occupies a particular role in ensuring that such disgraceful things as we hear and that affect us is dealt with. Now look at these insecurity issues. For instance, it was found out that some community leaders were actually aiding and abetting these criminals.
Yep.
Also, Wike of Rivers State said about 3 weeks or a month ago that any traditional ruler found to be harboring cultists will be deposed. It tells you that, you mentioned cultism, that's why I factor that in. It tells you that even from the community leaders themselves, some of the things we allow sentiments to make us commit ourselves to are part of the problems that eat us up. And if you continue to feed your animal with your neighbor's meat, the day you don't have any of your neighbor to feed the animal with, the animal turns to you and eats you up.
And we'll feed on you. Lester, before we go,
Yeah.
he's talked about the fact, and you also mentioned it, that we have a certain prism that we look at things from. Is it going to, are we ever going to be able to break that cycle anytime soon? Because, and just as you said, because your friend is somewhere and you know you can benefit from that thing, you would, you know, clap and, you know, aid the person on, even when you know that it is wrong. How do we break that cycle? Because it's only then that we can actually move ahead to doing the right thing.
Yes, the way to break that cycle, like you said, it's where everybody, you, me, civil societies, press, supports the government. Now, it doesn't matter if a government is one-sided, left-sided, right-sided, but so long as an issue is being addressed, why don't we go with that line? Now, if, for instance, and I think President Muhammadu Buhari has a golden opportunity to help us break that cycle. Right now, he's a president. He's in his last term as a president. He will not stand election again. As far as age, he's well ripened in age to retire back to his home and play with his grandchildren, not looking for a contract anywhere.
At all.
To play with his grandchildren until whenever his maker calls him home. So he has a golden opportunity now to look at the face of everybody and says, just like our passenger said, no matter whose ox is God. Now, Buratai has made a very fantastic statement. For me, like Kunu said, it's to follow it up with a fantastic action. Now, get your intelligence. Present them before the Nigerian public. Let anybody go to hell and say they are doctored, they are fabricated. So long as it is there, take up the gauntlet and deal with whoever is involved. A traditional ruler should be deposed. That is, look, just like it's about traditional rulers and what Wike said. I said it here I mean, when I was here last time. I went to Port Harcourt during the Easter period, and the the driver was saying, between this LLA and Alu and Uniport, sorry, Emoha, that is the hotbed of kidnapping in Rivers State. He says, to solve this problem, both youth leader, community head, chief, everybody should be arrested. Okay. If you arrest them, that is sure, because they are all part and parcel of the problem. Now, if we do not wake up and deal with those, and just like they said in Zafara, the emirs, colluding, get these people arrested first, and then let them hire all the sons. Okay. But so long as you have your facts right, your intelligence right, you have let people be jailed. And President Muhammadu Buhari, with Fearless Man, has the good opportunity now to set that standard. So whoever comes after him can continue from there, and then let's understand the country.
I want to thank you, Adeni Ikunu and Lester Wilcox, both analysts. Thank you very much, gentlemen. But I'm not going to let you go. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll be talking about the incoming and the outgoing governors of Lagos State. So stay with us. We'll be right back.